There's a lot of important things to think about when you're thinking about doing your placement. What populations are you interested in working with? So, for example, are you interested in working with children or youth or the older populations, folks with disabilities? What populations are you interested in working with? Also, what areas of practice are you interested in trying out? For example, are you interested in doing child welfare? Do you want to work in a hospital, in healthcare, in a long-term care facility, in policy development? So it's important to think through that, what your interest might be. Based on feedback from others and your own self-reflection, it's important to start thinking about your learning objectives. So what do you need to learn and what do you want to learn? And those can be very different things. The things we want to learn are as often the things that we're interested in and maybe come easily to us. The things that we need to learn are oftentimes the things that don't come so easy and we may need to work a little bit harder on. Both those are important to consider when you're selecting and thinking about a placement. You're going to hear a lot about learning objectives, and the learning objectives are linked to that learning plan I spoke to earlier. For both your third and fourth year placements, as I mentioned, you'll be developing a learning plan. And all of our learning plans are based on students developing learning objectives in the areas of knowledge, skills, personal, professional development. It's important to have at least 3 in each area. So if you were doing child welfare work, for example, a knowledge thing might be it's important to know the Child and Family Services Act. A skill might be I need to know how to work with parents who are angry or not taking care of their kids in terms of specific interviewing skills related to that. Personal, professional might be I need to manage my time better. I'm challenged by people who are angry, and so I need to figure out how to work with that. Those are some examples to think about. And those areas will, again, make up your learning plan, and they will ensure that you have a really good learning experience and will make sure that your field instructor helps you reach the targets that you've set in each of those areas. It's also important to know what things you're uncomfortable with and what is that based on. Be open to try new things. Sometimes people come in with having very clear ideas about where they want a placement and where they'd like to work. And I can tell you from experience that oftentimes when students go into an area that they aren't sure about or never really thought about, they're often surprised and often end up choosing a path that they would have never considered before. So I'm going to encourage you to kind of be open to try new things and not be set on a particular population or a particular area of practice, especially for your third year placement. It's also important to think about your personal readiness for placement. Oftentimes, students come into the social work program and you have a set time frame about how long it's supposed to get you through the program. So for example, if you're in the second degree program, you are planning to be finished in 2 years. And that might be possible for lots of you. For some of you, you may land in the program and life may happen where somebody gets sick in your family or you get sick and you need to take some time off. It's important to know that there's lots of different paths through the program, and so just because there may be a set time frame that you have in mind, be open to the fact that you might take a little longer if things come up, or if you are challenged by things that you are learning in the school. Social work is a difficult field, and oftentimes when students enter our program, they are confronted with experiences in their own life that they weren't aware of, or maybe were aware of and weren't aware of how they were going to impact their practice. And so sometimes that can delay things a little bit, while students take the necessary time to make sure that they are okay and well and ready and fully committed and able to do a placement. So just important to think through that. Social work placements are often really energy consuming and stressful. Block placements in particular are tough because essentially you're in placement 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, in class all day Friday, Monday 9 to 4. And then there's 4 or 5 assignments that you have to do in a 13-week period. So You are essentially living, breathing, and sleeping social work for those 13 weeks. So it's important to be prepared for that and to just know that you're ready. So think about how much energy do you have to commit to placement right now, and is this a good time for you? If, for example, you are slated to do summer block placement and something comes up or you decide you're not ready, you are not obligated to do summer block. You could always opt to do third year concurrent placement, which would be the September to April time slot. So don't feel pressured that you have to do it on the time that you initially set up. How ready are you physically and emotionally to face the challenges of placement? Again, remember that the work is difficult no matter what kind of agency you're placed at. You are constantly hearing of people's struggles and painful situations that they are dealing with. And so that can take a toll on us. And so really important that you are emotionally and physically ready. And also to think about what support systems do you have in place for yourself during placement. Are there family, friends? Are you seeing a counselor? Are there other opportunities for you to make sure that you are well supported during the placement process? Lived experience is an important one to talk about. Life happens to all of us. We all experience difficulties in our lives. And sometimes these experiences can help us in our social work careers. They can really help us connect with people. And sometimes they can cause us to over-identify, making it really difficult for us to be in those situations and make it hard for us to respond in the kind of way that we need to in order to support the service users that we're working with. So it's important to think about what situations might cause a reaction in you. Will this reaction negatively affect a service user? Will it affect you negatively or the agency that you're going to be at? Think about whether you're ready to do a placement. And again, there's no set time frame to do that. The example I use, for example, if you told me that somebody that you were close to passed away recently, but you had wanted to do a hospital placement, I'd have to say that probably now might not be the best time for you to do a hospital placement. That's not to say that in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or whatever time frame elapses, that experience might not make you a really great hospital social worker. But the important thing to consider is timing. The timing has to be right for you to have dealt with the experience yourself and to figure out how you can use it in a positive way for service users. Again, this is not about you. Ethically, we're drawn to ensure that we are there to help people where they're at. And so we have to make sure that we don't let ourselves get in the way of helping somebody else. You can learn the skills of how to be a social worker without being immersed in a setting that you are directly impacted by. So the example I use is you would never learn to ride a bike and juggle at the same time. Yet that's kind of what you're trying to do if you're learning how to be a social worker and dealing with a personal issue that's impacted you. So you can separate those. You can learn the skills in any setting without being immersed and really being impacted by the work you're doing every day. That's not to say that we can completely avoid everything. So, for example, we know people's lives are complicated and intersected. So if you were to tell me that you didn't want to work in a setting where there was domestic violence, for example, I can make sure that I don't place you in a women's shelter where that's what you're going to be dealing with all the time. But even if I place you at a hospital or a child welfare setting, the reality is people's lives are intersected, and so you will run into those kinds of issues anywhere you go. It's the question of how much and how often. So at the same time, you also need to be prepared for how you are going to handle being confronted with a client that represents the thing that you are most worried or scared about in terms of how you would react and how you would support that person. Because that will happen. And so it's important to have a plan in place before it happens so that you're prepared. Again, I just want to stress the importance of us ensuring that we're providing care and service for the people that we are supposed to be supporting.